In this video, I'm going to change my spark plugs and the ignition coil packs. Per my user's manual for the car, the spark plugs have to be changed every 30,000 miles. And here is my first step. I'm disconnecting the battery negative terminal from the car. It's done here at the driver's side front strut tower. The battery's negative terminal is brought up to this point. The next step is to remove the engine beauty cover. And here I'm removing the coil pack's electrical connections and the mounting bolts, and then the coils. The plastic orange lock sliders have to be retracted before the electrical connector can be removed. Then that gray plastic, there's a gray plastic cantilever that can be depressed, and then the connector can be gently removed. And the coil pack mounting bolt is a Torx. Sorry, I don't remember the number. But I'm showing all of this just so you get the idea of how the connector operates and how that interlock mechanism operates. Also, notice here that some of the gray plastic cantilevers are broken, thereby allowing the plastic orange lock sliders to fall out. I was careful not to lose any of that stuff. Even though they're broken, they're still usable. It's the last coil pack. Okay, so here are the coil packs. There's some discoloration on the rubber boots, and also in the middle section of the coil pack tube, I guess from overheating or something, I don't know. There was no oil on the coil pack tubes themselves. And here I'm looking with a flashlight down into the spark plug cavities for dirt and oil, checking each one of those. I didn't see anything in there. I didn't see any oil accumulated in there, which is good. Okay, so this is the plastic valve cover, and I changed my valve cover gaskets on this thing about a year ago, so I'm good to go there. But there is the valve cover gasket around the perimeter, and then there's 4 circular valve cover gaskets in these spark plug tubes that keep engine oil from getting down into the area where the spark plug is. So those have to be changed. I think I did mine at about 100,000 miles, 110,000 miles. And then there are fasteners here. There are 18 fasteners around the perimeter of this thing, and then there's another 4 in the center, 1 on either end here and here. Though each of those fasteners has a little rubber donut grommet on them, and that has to be changed as well. What the valve cover gaskets look like. There's the large one. This goes under the perimeter of the plastic valve cover, and this one goes in the center of the plastic valve cover, and it is the gasket that blocks the oil flow from going into the spark plug tube. It's very important. They're both very important. They're very flexible. It's like a silicon kind of material. Very flexible. The old gasket that I changed about a year ago had hardened into something of a hard plastic, and oil was leaking around the exterior of the valve cover, on the exterior of the engine, and possibly also down into the spark plug tubes. I didn't check it at that time. I checked it this time when I changed my spark plugs. Here I'm pushing a microfiber towel down into the spark plug tubes with a long skinny screwdriver to try to pull out any oil residue or dirt that's down in these tubes. And here in the background there, you can, or just right behind that microfiber towel, you can see there are some brass fasteners that are cast into the plastic valve cover, and that of course is what holds the coil packs in place. And I just had to make a mental note when I put those fasteners back in not to over torque them, because if I break those fasteners free of the plastic, then I'd be in big trouble. I wouldn't be able to hold the ignition coil packs in place. Anyway, I'm continuing here with the pushing the microfiber towel down into that spark plug tube to bring up any dirt or oil that's down in there, just as a precaution. Now I also used compressed air here to blow out any dirt that may still be down in there, because when I take the spark plugs out, I do not want any dirt falling down into the cylinders. So I'm doing that here for each of these spark plug tubes. I'm just holding the microfiber towel over that there, so I don't get any dirt blowing up in my face. All right, we're doing the last one. So that should ensure that there's no dirt in there. All right, now I'm removing the spark plug on cylinder number 1. I got a special socket for that. It's got a magnet in the socket, or some sort of mechanism to hold the spark plug in place so it doesn't fall out. And I use these Mopar spark plugs. There's the part number there. They do have metal plating to prevent any anti-seizing, or to prevent seizing. So I did not put any anti-seize material on the plugs when I put them back in. I just relied on that plating. And here the instructions are to tighten the plug 1/2 to 2/3 of a turn. That's 180 degrees to 240 degrees after they are put in hand tight. Okay, so there's a box of spark plugs. It was 4 of them in that box. And inside that box, there's 4 individual boxes, each with a spark plug. So here goes. Here's the first one I'm going to be putting in using my special socket. Just tightening it in by hand per the instructions until it bottoms out there. Now I'm going to follow the instructions on the spark plug box, and there's 90 degrees, 180 degrees, maybe about 185, 190 degrees, something like that. That was cylinder 1. I'm removing the spark plug from cylinder number 2. Next, new spark plug going in. It's got a little plastic tube over the spark plug threads to protect the threads and the gap on the spark plug. All right, I'm going in, hand tightening this spark plug in cylinder number 2. All right, I hand tightened it. I'm going in with the ratchet. All right, there's 90 degrees, 180 degrees. I'm past 180, maybe like 185, 190 degrees. It's torqued in. And that washer on the bottom of those plugs, it's like actually I think it's referred to as a gasket. It's like a crush. It's a crush. It's made out of metal, and it crushes as it's tightened. And I could feel that, I could feel what it was tight enough. I mean, it was pretty easy for me not to over tighten. I just followed the directions on the box, and I could feel when it was snugly in place, and where I could, in other words, if I went further, I'd probably be doing damage, like stripping threads or something like that. It was pretty easy to tell. All right, cylinder number 3. Running it down by hand. Okay, there's 90 degrees, 180 degrees, right at 180 degrees. Cylinder number 4, removing the spark plug. And when I started this job, one risk I took, I mean, I've had this done by the dealership several times, and I was just concerned that I may pull out some threads when I pull the spark plug out, but I didn't do that. Okay, so I apparently I saw some oil or something on that spark plug where I felt I needed to do a little bit more cleaning on this spark plug tube. I should have done more cleaning before I pulled the spark plug out, because the risk here is that if there's any debris down in there, I could be pushing it down into the cylinder. So I really should not be cleaning that spark plug tube with the spark plug out of there. Should have done this before. And I did do it, but I'm just doing it more now. Okay, cylinder number 4 is going to get the new spark plug. Carefully put that down in there. And like I said, that socket has a special captive mechanism. I think it's a magnet to hold onto the spark plug so I don't drop it. The spark plug doesn't fall out and change the gap. Okay, this one was a little, I still had to use the ratchet just a little bit to get it to be hand tightened. All right, there I'm going 180 degrees in, and that's the end of my torquing. Now I'm going in with the ignition coil packs. These are new, also Mopar. And I'm just hand tightening the that bolt using that Torx fastener, or the Torx bit. And I do have a torque wrench for this. There's an inch-pound torque rating on that. Very important here not to exceed that, because if I were to, like I mentioned that earlier, if I were to break that fastener, that nut that's cast into the plastic valve cover, then I wouldn't be able to retain the ignition coil pack in the valve cover. I'd have real problems. So, very important. Yeah, there's this is not unusual. I mean, the coil pack will spring back up some. There's like a coil spring conductor in the tube of the coil pack that goes down to the electrode on the spark plug, and that's why that thing was pushing back up like that. It's not a problem. I was getting rained on some here. It's rain on my gloves. Cylinder number 3, now for cylinder number 4. And you may be wondering, why did you change your coil packs? Well, my car had 100,000, 110,000. I don't remember the mileage. I'd have to check my maintenance records, but I had these. I'd purchased these. Okay, here I am torquing very carefully. It's in inch-pounds. It's a low number. Being very careful not to break that fastener free that's in the plastic valve cover. That would be a disaster if that would have happened. Now I'm reinstalling the connectors onto the ignition coil packs. All except one of these connectors is basically broken. Those little orange slide locks, there's a cantilever lever on the, okay, I just put them all on there. I did that off camera. I think it can be seen how they're locked in place there. Now I'm putting on the beauty cover, and I'm going to reconnect the negative terminal of my battery to the car chassis right here. Tighten that down. Okay, what could go wrong with this? Well, the first thing was that the spark plug threads could be damaged when I removed the spark plugs, and that was a bit of a risk that I took by doing this job. I'd already had the spark plugs changed 3 times before by the dealership every 30,000 miles, and I decided to do it myself this time. So yeah, that was a risk. I mean, if the threads would have come out of the cylinder head when I was removing the spark plugs, I would have had to have the car towed because I did not know how to deal with that. Okay, the next thing that could go wrong is that I could have stripped the threads on the spark plug when I was installing them. In other words, I could have over torqued them. Well, there were very specific instructions on the spark plug box how to tighten them. Went over that earlier, so I made sure that I followed those exactly, and I didn't have any problems with stripping them out. The next problem, which I've talked about earlier, is that the coil pack fastener that's molded into the plastic valve cover could be broken free. So it was very important to not over torque those fasteners. I have had an inch-pounds torque wrench for that, and I obeyed the torque specification for that. And the next problem, this wasn't a problem for me, was that the valve cover gasket could require replacement. In other words, it would be leaking, and in my case, I did it about a year before I did these spark plugs and coil packs. I changed my valve cover gaskets, and I did have a leak externally on the engine. It was dripping, oil was dripping down the side of the cylinder head, several places around the perimeter of the valve cover. Also, it's possible that oil could leak down into the spark plug tube area and thereby cause misfires, which of course would be a problem. The other important thing to take note of, or that could be done wrong, would be to use the wrong spark plugs. So I had to make sure I used the correct spark plugs. My engine is a 2.4 liter Dual VVT Non-PZEV, PZEV being partial zero emissions vehicle. The spark plug gap is 43 thousandths. And the other engine, a variation on this engine, is a 2.4 liter Dual VVT PZEV partial zero emissions vehicle. The gap is 30 thousandths. Now that PZEV is a California emissions car. My car is not a California emissions car. It's standard US emissions. And I knew that my car was a non-PZEV car, but I also did some research on that. And one way that can be determined is to look at the emission sticker. It's on my hood. It's on the underside of the hood. About halfway down on the left side of that sticker, there's a US EPA information there, and that means that it meets US environmental standards. All of them do. And then on the bottom on the right side is the California emissions, and it says NA for not applicable for all across the top there. And it also says not for sale in states with California emissions standards. Well, if this fields were populated for that, then it would be a California emissions car, which, as I understand it, that's what PZEV is, partial zero emissions vehicles. So that's how I knew. Well, if one was not sure about how to identify whether their car was a PZEV or a non-PZEV, this would be a way to make that determination. I knew my car was not a PZEV vehicle. Okay, well, if you found this video entertaining or helpful, please like, subscribe, and share. And I will put links to parts in the description. Also, if I've made any misstatements, or if I had anything that needs to be corrected in the video audio track, I will put some information down in the comments. Thank you for watching.